So we'll get right into it actually, now that we're here on time. So today's topic is really Windows migration from Windows 10 to Windows 11. We have the end of life coming for Windows 10 later this year. Everyone has to have an action plan and be ready to go for what are we going to do to make sure that we're on time and that we can actually make our environments ready to go. So I have a little bit of a demonstration. We'll walk through a couple just items that we'll review together. Things like making sure that the systems are up to date, kind of go over the evolution of Windows through Windows 10 to 11, when the actual deadline is at the end of life, how to prepare for that migration, making sure that your clients are actually ready to be upgraded to Windows 11, and then deploying those upgrades and also replacing the incompatible hardware that just isn't capable of upgrading. Those are going to be devices that you'll need to either replace or upgrade the hardware for, and then be able to migrate them to Windows 11. So yeah, this will be kind of a good walkthrough presentation on general information, maybe some tips and best practices to make sure that this is a smooth transition for your organization. So we'll start off with the evolution of Windows as operating systems. Obviously, we all were familiar with Windows 10 at this point, having it been deployed for almost 10 years now, or maybe not quite, but I think it was 2017-ish that Windows 10 came out. Obviously, before that, we all had the impact of trying to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10. A lot of us just skipped 8 altogether. I don't blame anyone. But Windows 10 has kind of been the core operating system in most organizations' environments for quite a while now. It was very stable comparatively to the prior releases, and ended up being a pretty well done OS comparatively to some of the failures that Microsoft has put out over the years. And then now we're getting it taken away. So we all came to love this operating system, and now it's going to be pushed away, and we're going to be all onto Windows 11. Now, Microsoft is really pushing a lot of effort into Windows 11. They have a fresh, modern design, trying to make that kind of enticing and bring the users in. They're trying to add in some increases in productivity apps, like they're really going all in with their Copilot or their AI integration into Windows 11. So that's a high emphasis for their increase in productivity, and then also bringing the intelligence of the OS up to speed. So we're really seeing a lot of advancements with Windows 11. It's been out for a little while now. I think it first was available in 2021, and then actually for upgrades starting in 22. So we've seen a few iterations already. So by this point, it's already been a little bit of a trialed system for most environments. But even if you haven't started your upgrade yet, we'll go through the kind of things to look out for, and then some just general tips and best practices. So what happens when an operating system becomes end of life? So back in 2021, right before they released the Windows 11 first iteration, they announced that there would be an end of support for Windows 10. This was kind of known to everyone. They're not going to support an OS forever once they have a newer edition out. So this was something that Microsoft was planning on, but obviously with the mass deployment of Windows 10 across the world, it's going to be a big undertaking. So with the end of life in the October 14th, 2025, later this fall, they're going to cease to release updates for Windows 10. So we won't receive any security patches. That's going to leave some systems vulnerable if they fail to be patched. Any new zero-day or any vulnerabilities that are found can then be exploited. So really there's an urgency to upgrade here to avoid security holes and just problems in your environment that might come up from that. Now they will offer kind of an extended update package, but that's going to end up costing a lot more money. So we really want to try to avoid that and just go to the supported operating system to not have to pay extra money out of pocket to kind of prop up an old operating system. So knowing the timeline that we get these updates out is really important. October end of life date. That also is going to bring in the critical patch and date for patching, and then this helps us ahead of time just plan out the security. So really the best timeline for deployment hopefully had already started for your company, but if you are needing to catch up and get caught up by the end of life in October, you still have a lot of time. Doesn't mean that it's something that you can delay probably further than now. A lot of companies have already gone through their testing phase of Windows 11 over the past year or so, and they've really started to push the testing, and then they're beginning to do the phase rollout come the next month or so. So a lot of companies, we recommended having the testing of Windows 11 be done early last year, beginning of this year, and then now they're starting to actually bring the full phased rollout of Windows 11 into the production environments. So by October 14th, 2025, we should have all the machines capable of upgrading be pushed to Windows 11, and then any not capable of upgrading actually be replaced for your organization or upgraded their hardware. So let's go through a little bit of the preps or checklists that will help you guys get ready for the migration to Windows 11. There's a few key points in mind that we need to check to make sure that you have the requirements met before this actual upgrade is attempted. Some of those are going to be your hardware requirements. Now, these have changed. These have been increased from Windows 10. So you may have some machines that did not have these base requirements running Windows 10, and then now going to 11. With the increase in hardware, they are non-capable of running these. So one of those changes is having at least a 1 gigahertz clock speed with 2 or more cores, and then also no more 32-bit processors. So 64-bit processor and 2 or more cores is required for the processors. Now, RAM and storage also increased. I believe Windows 10 was a 2 gig requirement, and I'm trying to remember the storage capacity requirement for Windows 10, but now we're going to need 4 gigs of RAM minimum, and at least 64 gigabytes of storage is required for Windows 11 to effectively run. There's also going to be a change in the minimum firmware requirements. So UEFI firmware with secure boot capability is now needed for installing Windows 11. And then also a core compatibility chip, and this is one that a lot of machines that are a little bit older running Windows 10 do not meet, is this TPM version being 2.0 or greater for compatibility. So I've seen a lot of devices across different companies that do not meet that, and then that's going to prevent them from actually upgrading to Windows 11. So this is a good checklist to let you know what we need to pay attention to on the hardware side. There are going to be some software requirements as well. Different applications don't play nice. We might have to remove and then reinstall some different apps that are preventing an upgrade from commencing. So there's going to be some compatibilities with different software applications. You may find some apps that have been installed prevent this in-place upgrade or the migration for Windows 11 from occurring. So we have to go through and make sure that there's no apps that are not able to be upgraded to Windows 11, and then think about the transition with them. Now, this is a little bit difficult because there's so many different applications out there in different environments, and this is where that testing phase really comes into the importance. By testing a device first, we can get a general idea of what applications may not be compatible or would prevent the upgrade from occurring, and then we're able to address that. A lot of vendors do have a list of compatibility, but some do not, and then you may have a surprise if you didn't do any testing with the hardware requirements may match and you may be fine on that side, but the software applications can actually prevent that from occurring. So doing a thorough evaluation of what applications are actually compatible and then doing those tests will help you guys make sure that these are effective, especially when you're doing a mass rollout or mass deployment. Now, there's a couple of things that can prevent these from happening by design. There's some GPOs and then also some registry values that are associated with these in-place upgrades, if that's the route that you wanted to take. Some companies go through just a full reinstall, to complete format and reinstall of the device, but others will do the in-place upgrade. So there's a group policy settings that have to be accounted for, so allow the target version and the in-place feature upgrade to actually run through effectively. So I'll show you guys in the next slide here of what those target versions are, and then that will allow that upgrade to actually get pushed through. So we have the GPO, that's the select target feature update version. That's going to be one of the group policies under the Windows Update group policy objects, and you can actually specify what target version you want the machine to be upgraded to. So that's also a core registry value as well if you wanted to deploy a registry change to your system. so that you can use it via GPO or just a one-time registry push to then increase or then deploy the in-place upgrade. And that's going to be in the local machine in the target box that I have displayed on the right side of the presentation here, if you were wanting to go the target route. The data value at the bottom there would be what version that you want to deploy to. So it's the display version of the OS. So obviously we have 23H2 for that version of Windows 11, and then the most recent version that was released is the 24H2 currently. All right, now let's look at how to plan and actually execute this upgrade. So after we do that checklist, we assess the current systems, making sure that we understand what kind of strengths or qualities that are capable of upgrading. We're able to determine what machines are not capable or what applications won't meet them. Then we can bring out the timeline of the rollout to different devices. So we have that staggered plan of going through our test machines first, then doing a little bit more broad of a deployment before we go through executing like a mass deployment to the rest of the organization. By coordinating non-critical machines at different times, we pay special attention to those. We won't have issues where critical infrastructure goes down in times of need. So if there's any priority machines or maybe executive level devices that you really need to pay special attention to, we may take those out of just the mass enrollment and do those individually for those critical devices. All right, that kind of brings us back again to that testing and validation part. The testing is really essential. If you don't do tests, you're gonna have a bad day. By trialing and making sure that these systems are tested before we do a mass rollout, you're not met with a surprise come Monday after you just upgraded half of your staff's machines that everyone can upgrade or open an application. They're getting error messages when they try to connect to their meeting software. Any of those things that you might be met with if you didn't do a kind of varied rollout or scheduled testing. So detecting those issues before a full deployment is really critical to the effective Windows 11 migration. Also, there's a little bit of user education that's going to be needed for this change. A lot of users are used to the way Windows 10 operates and looks. Windows 11, while it's similar, there's a lot different actually. They changed a little bit of the way that the menu looks, the start menu, when you try to open applications. They moved around a couple of the naming conventions on different things that users might be used to seeing. So having a few users or maybe just giving a list of the subtle changes that they're going to experience gives them readiness, and they're not submitting support tickets rapidly for things that are actually in their system. They're just not used to where the location is now. So going through a brief training or just kind of overview what to expect with your users, even if it's just a short 5-minute video that you record to show the differences between 10 and 11, that's really effective in reducing that volume when you do the mass rollout to your organization. That brings us to our software here at Baramundi. This is something that we actually do. We assist with transitioning. We assist with checking to make sure that machines are viable for the upgrade. And then we're actually able to customize the version or the OS that you're deploying, as well as initiate the in-place upgrade. So that's all something that Baramundi would be able to help with as a software vendor. We kind of breathe Windows operating management, and it's something that we do really well. So we're able to customize your OS image, so you don't have to push out the generic Windows 11 image that comes with all the bloatware. A lot of companies will have the Xbox Live apps, or they used to come with like Candy Crush or something. I think they finally stopped doing that. But we're able to customize the image with your default applications and things before it goes out, so you're not having to reinstall those post-install. This really simplifies that process and doesn't have as much transition time when you're doing an in-place upgrade. It's really easy to do as well. You can push these out on a scheduled time. You can even, if you wanted to, have the users interact or elect to when their upgrade takes place. So you could say that, hey, we give you guys the next month to deploy the upgrade, do it at your leisure, and then we have a deadline where it's going to force more users to deploy it if they haven't. So this lets people find a convenient time that fits their schedule, and then they can just click on doing their own migration or their own upgrade. And then Baramundi takes care of the process and deployment for it. So this really helps. We're also able to do building OS device or building machines from the ground up. So if you needed to reinstall Windows 11 completely, Baramundi can assist with the OS deployment, which really helps with bringing things forward. So this really helps with reducing that downtime between upgrades in the company. This also brings us to reporting. So if you find that you may have a list of devices that is not capable of upgrading, how are you going to submit that to either purchase or let your finance department know that you need to get some new devices in here because we cannot upgrade the ones that we have right now? This will give a nice report. It's easy to read. It shows that which ones are not capable of upgrading, and then we're able to make a decision based on that. Like, hey, it's very obvious that we have these machines that do not meet the criteria. They will need to be physically upgraded, as in the hardware will need to be altered, or we have to replace the whole device itself. So in Baramundi, we have a quick way that you can put down that criteria. We can look at what the TPM versions are, what the memory is, C capacity, and then any devices that do not meet those conditions will be displayed in a nice report for you that you can submit to management and say, hey, we have these however many machines that we're going to have to address before the end of life in October. So with these in mind, Baramundi really helps with this process of not only facilitating the upgrade, but also getting the data back on who is capable of upgrading and then who do we need to special attention to. So I hope this webinar was helpful with some tips and things that we can use to really speed this up, or things to think about before we go through this end-of-life upgrade. There's still a little bit of time, but it's coming up quick and the summer flies by. So October 14th, 2025 will be here and before we even know it. Yeah, appreciate everyone taking the time to come to our webinar, and look forward to speaking with you. If you're not a Baramundi customer already, if you are and you need some questions or help with this, we're happy to talk with you also. Thanks everyone. My name's Will Wyatt as a pre-sales engineer here. Appreciate the time.